Hey, welcome to October, the absolute best month for baseball because the playoffs are here. Now, the Padres have really been struggling, and that's something we got to pray about, probably all off-season, but you never know. You just never know. Just like the baseball season comes to an end, our study in the book of Colossians comes to an end today. We have gone through the entire book in about 5 minutes a day. And if you've made it through all the devotionals since we started the book of Colossians back in March, and you come to church this Sunday, I've got a special gift for you. It's a Bible made of gold. No, I'm just kidding. Your reward is what you've gained through the Word of God. Some of you are like, I'd rather have the golden Bible. Okay, but you need my next devotional also that I will begin next week. If you are enjoying these Today Matters devotionals, as I mentioned before, it's going to really help us if you commented, if you liked, and you subscribe to our Skyline Church channel. But we are finishing up the book of Colossians. We're looking at Paul's concluding remarks. It's easy to just breeze past these remarks without seeing the depth of meaning in them. So we're diving into them to see what we can learn. By the way, this is known as an expositional study of the Word of God. Verse by verse, expositional study is what we've been doing since March. Today, we're in the last part, Colossians 4:15 through 18, which says this: Please give my greetings to our brothers and sisters at Laodicea and to Nympha and the church that meets in her house. After you've read this letter, pass it on to the church at Laodicea so they can read it too. And you should read the letter I wrote to them. And say to Archippus, be sure to carry out the ministry the Lord gave you. In the final verse, he says, here is my greeting in my own handwriting, Paul. Remember my chains. May God's grace be with you. See, Paul closes by asking the Colossians to greet the Christians in nearby Laodicea for him. Nympha, the church that is in her house, may have been the church at Laodicea, or it may have been at Hierapolis. Those are those three Colossians. They're all close cities there. Now, the church of the Laodiceans was to read the letter to the Colossians. And they were to read the letter that is coming from Laodicea. See, Paul reminds them of a very common practice with Paul's letters, which was make sure the other churches read them too. His instructions were inspired by God, and Paul wanted them to make sure they all received the very important instructions and greetings as well. Paul mentions the Laodicean letter, and in theological scholarship, there's been a lot of debate over the identity of the Laodicean letter. It has been variously identified as a letter from the Laodiceans to Paul. It's been called a letter written by Paul from Laodicea. The apocryphal epistle to the Laodiceans, and some of you will know what that the Apocrypha, which is a set of books not recognized as canonical or biblical. In other words, the authorship is questioned and the content is fictional and even ridiculous in some cases. Some apocryphal books are absolute just myths and weird stories. However, the Catholic Church Bible includes the apocryphal writings. Just another difference between the Catholics and evangelical Christians, or also, as we're known, Protestant Christians. But back to the Laodicean letter, it may have been a genuine letter of Paul to the Laodiceans that is now lost. That seems to be the most common argument, that he wrote a letter to them, but it's now lost. Now, in all likelihood, however, Paul here, he's referring to the book of Ephesians. The oldest manuscripts of Ephesians do not contain the words in Ephesus. In Ephesians 1:1, indicating that it was a circular letter intended for several churches. Now, I know I'm getting deep in the weeds, but it's kind of interesting, so I hope you're picking up on it. But Tychicus probably delivered Ephesians to the Laodiceans. So Paul commands the Colossians and the Laodiceans to exchange letters. So he wants these things circulating around so everybody can be encouraged. Now, Archippus appears only here and in Philemon 2. And he's commanded to take heed to his ministry so that he will fulfill the ministry God's called him to. Now, the examples of Paul's co-workers in the verses we've read already, that'd be a powerful incentive for him, Archippus, to get it done. Like, get the ministry, get after it. And now, to fulfill our ministry is what the Lord expects all of us to do as well. We can only speculate, okay, of what the issue was with Archippus. But for some reason, Paul felt it was necessary to encourage and to implore him to fulfill his ministry. Now, Paul customarily, as we get to the end of his letter here, he used a recording secretary when he was writing his letters. Literally, he had someone transcribe what he was saying, typically because of his poor eyesight and other health issues that he had. It's kind of widely known that he had a problem, it might have been arthritis, we don't know, but he had a hard time writing. He had pain. He dealt with a lot of pain. But he frequently added a greeting with his own hand. Even if he had a secretary write what he was saying, he would frequently in his own hand put I, Paul, or something along those lines. We see that in 1 Corinthians 16:21, 2 Thessalonians 3:17, and Philemon 19. He asks them to remember his imprisonment in their prayers, and he closes with a common salutation. Grace be with you. Now that sums up the message of Colossians. The message of Colossians, we can take the last several months and just put it in a little sentence, and it's this: salvation is by grace through faith in the all-sufficient Christ, not through human works advocated by false teachers. Now, I hope that this devotional series has been helpful to you. Let us know in the comment section, as I mentioned, even if it's just a thumbs up in the comment section. We appreciate you. God bless you, and we'll see you this Sunday.